welcome to ConTinual, the convention that never ends. My name is Jean Marie Ward, and with me today is the award-winning author and editor of fiction, nonfiction, comedy, drama, tie-ins, and hamsters. Esther Friesner. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm enjoying this already.
Oh, good, good. We hope you continue to enjoy it, because those are the most fun interviews. You started writing or blackmailing your family into writing down your stories since you were 3 years old.
Yep.
How did you get from there to studying Spanish, teaching Spanish at the college level, and Lope de Vega?
Oh my. Well, it was, I'm going to blame my upbringing. Both of my parents were teachers in the New York City junior and senior high schools. And my father taught Spanish. He also taught French, Italian, and Latin, and he spoke 11 languages. So Spanish was very much a presence in the house. The funny thing was I took French before I took Spanish, but he was always speaking about Spanish literature, actually about Cervantes, because sometimes I would think in fantastic terms, and he would invoke Don Quixote, whose fantasy got away from him. Except being a kid, very young at the time, I was under the impression somewhere there was a donkey named Jote. And now that is actually, when I discovered Mr. Rogers had Don Quixote on his show, it was very warming to me. But I always knew I wanted to either write or act. And I also knew I wanted to eat on a regular basis. And since I did not have the courage to try acting professionally, although I have done it, at school, I figured I could write and hold down a teaching job. So I got a degree undergrad in Spanish and drama, and I got a PhD in Spanish after about, I think it took me 5 years, maybe 7. I forgot. I'm sorry.
Well, there was a script in the way, I think.
I don't know. It could have been. But then the thing about Lope de Vega, I forget when I found out about him. When I found out about this man's life and works, I do not have the actual numbers to give you, but he was a contemporary of Cervantes and of Shakespeare. And he was the writer that the other writers wanted to lure into a back alley and give a stern talking to, she said, keeping it polite. He had a friend, and the friend who was a writer said, "Hey, I've got a wonderful idea. Here's a challenge. By tomorrow morning, let's write the first act of a play." And Lope de Vega said, "Sure." And in those times and place, it was rhymed. So it wasn't just, I don't remember if it was free verse or not. Next morning, his friend comes over, sweating bullets. "I made it." And there is Lope in the garden, happily, trimming the plants. "And how about you?" says the friend. And Lope said, "Oh, I was on a roll. So, I finished the whole play. I wrote a bunch of poems. I did this, I did that." They haven't found all of his plays. They have not. And I also discovered he was a cat lover. And that kind of sealed the deal for me. But he also managed to have quite the love life in his copious spare time. My goodness, he got around. When he died, his funeral was one of these, when you see a celebrity funeral these days, the whole thing was packed. One of his daughters, who he had made darn sure went into a convent because he knew what men were like. She was at the gates waiting to see it go by, and she collapsed. He took holy orders later in life, I believe. And then he seduced another woman.
Mhm.
He did not know when to stop things. So that's kind of, it's very important for a writer to, if not have the direct inspiration for what he did as far as his life went, at least to be, you can be productive and you can be good. So there we are. That's Lope and me. Oh, and he also liked women. He didn't just love women. He liked women. He did a lot of plays, and I did my dissertation on the subject of the Queen in the theater of Lope de Vega. He showed great respect for women.
Oh, that's unusual for that time and place. I
Oh,
mean, it's
yeah.
one of the reasons why we read Shakespeare so much is because you've got those women who are fully actualized people and so frequently have agency in a time when legally it was very hard to find.
Indeed. And one of my favorites of his plays is La Dama Boba, the foolish woman. And it was kind of like the taming of the shrew. She was given more of a dowry because she was so foolish. And her servant, her handmaid servant, was also foolish. There's a wonderful, wonderful scene where in runs the servant saying, "Reward me, I bring you the best news. The brown cat has had kittens." And she does this beautiful lyrical description of the cats and how she gave birth. And it's a fake epic mini. And La Dama Boba, however, as soon as she finds love, suddenly outsmarts everybody just to get what she wants. So I thought that was good.
Oh, that's great. Well, there is a tradition in Western literature of the woman who appears foolish. I mean, I'm thinking Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Yes, yes. Oh, I adore that movie, and I adore Marilyn Monroe's speech at the end. Lorelei Lee,
Yes,
yes, yes. I'm not marrying him for his money. I'm marrying it for yours.
yes, to the father.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but that's cool. So you didn't take him as a role model in your life, but certainly as a role model in creating stories that were, came out fast and well. And
Thank
I
you.
mean, I've read so many of them, and I still say that your story about Medusa has the best last line of any story anywhere.
What was it? I
Do
had
I
a lot
dare?
of,
That's a spoiler. It involves birds.
oh, okay, okay. I can look it up. No, seriously, I don't remember a lot of what I have written because once I write something, well, there it is in print. I can go back and look at it again. I have had some very interesting interactions with people, with me sitting there doing this, the tilt, and going, I wrote that? What? Oh, okay. I like that. Yes, I'm glad I wrote it.
Oh, then maybe I shouldn't do the next question, which
Do it,
was
do it, do it.
okay. One of your most famous stories is Death and the Librarian. And, I understand you take inspiration from all sorts of places, including, buying some stray ideas in Schenectady. But this one was rather unique in that it was based on two little miniatures. Could you tell us about that?
I can do better than that.
Oh, great.
Here, all right, let me preface this. Sir Terry Pratchett was a friend, and he was the nicest person. And at the one of the San Francisco World Cons, he gave me two figures from his books because, you know, they've become games and art. And anyhow, Death is a very important character. Death always speaks in all caps, and he was endeared to me when he says, someone says, is there anything you like about this? Cats. Cats are nice. Sir Christopher Lee did the voice of Death in one of the animated things. And here is the librarian, who happens to be an orangutan. We will leave this to gentle viewer to go, you know, find the whole story. But I looked at them and I said, oh, Death in the library. Death and the, sometimes I get ideas for a title, and the title sounds so good to me that I have to hang a story off of it. And sometimes, at least once I can tell you about for sure, a typo caused a novel. We were interacting on social media, and someone was trying to type in the phrase tempting fate. It came out temping fate. And I looked at it and I said, ooh, what if somebody got a job as a temp worker for the fates? And a young adult novel, Tempting Fate, grew out of that. She temped, by the way, for the third fate, who they're all living in the suburbs. And the third fate, you know, the one who ends it.
Yes.
She's under a lot of stress lately because she's also a soccer mom. And you really don't want that fate under a lot of stress. No, 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 no. So this girl who cannot get a job anywhere else in her little suburban community because she tends to do things like draw skulls on her face when she's bored and wear a shirt that says orc, the other green meat. That's her job. And it turns out there are lots of other teenagers working for lots of other gods through this agency, which is run by a nice woman named Mrs. Atatosk, Mrs. R. Atatosk. All of my fans of Norse mythology might want to think about that name. Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, please.
R. Atatosk. Ratatosk is the squirrel who runs up and down the world tree trying to destroy it. And when Ratatosk succeeds with the help of a serpent at the foot of it, I believe as well, Ragnarok will come. So we really want Ratatosk running in temp agency instead.
Yeah. Is Ratatosk a soccer mom as well, or?
No, that is never revealed. She's, you know, just running this very nice temp agency in New Haven, Connecticut. I know the building. It's good to have somewhere, you know, that you can visualize.
Oh, hey, yeah. I mean, and the other thing that's great though is even if you can't be there, I understand the importance of visual reference, but now we live in a world where we have Google Maps and satellite view.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But you can't know that inside a building, you have those great old noir detective style doors with the frosted glass and the old wood and those floors that aren't linoleum. They're the beautiful stone floors, that sort of thing. And sometimes you actually have to go to a place to really know what it's like, because some of the things you just can't see until you're right there or have spoken to somebody who's right there.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. It's wonderful when you can be there, but I'm just so pumped that we have things that allow us to
Oh, yes,
compensate for
definitely.
when we can't, as in the past 2 years when we haven't been
Oh,
able to get out. Yeah. On a much happier note,
huzzah.
um, huzzah! Yes, you do like to do things that are somewhat challenging as well. I initially thought, chicks in chainmail was the result of somebody saying, no, that can't be done. But apparently it was something else. What was there may be more than one situation where somebody said, you can't possibly do that. And you took it as a challenge.
Oh, yes. Well, there I was with two small children in a place with bad food service, and they were hungry and they were starting to get a little upset. And I decided that perhaps I should entertain them. So I started making up songs for them. And one of the songs was so nonsensical that I loved it and I took it home with me. I wound up calling it the Ancient Sussex Lizard Washing Carol. And because it was just such a fun, nonsensical song, kind of like, gosh, I'm going to date myself by saying Mersey Dotes. But I took it to my friends and sang it for them, fellow writers, and they loved it too because it was nonsensical. So we would, be at Science Fiction Writers of America events singing this song, and a fellow writer came over and he said, that is the silliest, I hope he said silliest thing I have ever heard. Not in the please teach me the word sense. And I said, I think I can create a story that will have that song in it and it will make perfect sense. And we went back to the party and I went home and I wrote a story. It took a while because to justify a song that begins, bring forth your lizards, put them in the tub, I did manage to write it. It was called A Beltane and Suspenders. And the title alone is punishment enough for gentle reader.
Punishment
But
with a hyphen in it. Yes. I live with one of those.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I am having fun. And it got published in fantasy and science fiction. I think it might have been in Death in the Librarian, the anthology. No, I'm sorry, the collection. But in any case, it was so long that at the word rate, it wound up bringing in around $1,000. And it was published. And at the next iteration of the Science Fiction Writers of America Authors Editors Party, alas, now no more, same author comes over to me. He has obviously seen it. And he just looks at me and goes, I hate you.
Yeah, but hey, living well, the best revenge, right?
It's always never tell me no. My parents didn't. Look what happened, but still, do not tell me no.
Hey, you grew up in the family tradition of, taking a language for your doctorate and then teaching it. I mean, they didn't tell you no and you followed in their footsteps. That's a
Yes,
win.
yeah. My mother was an English teacher, and as a result, whenever it was time to tell me a story, it would come out of American literature.
Mhm.
And, I would keep saying, I want another. And she finally said, learn to read. You can have all the stories you want then. And I did.
Mhm. You did, and you wrote a lot of them too. Speaking of which,
Mm.
um, I mentioned Chicks in Chainmail, and that was how I first learned of your existence. I went, "Ooh, somebody writes funny." But you not only wrote that, you created an anthology, several anthologies around it. How did that come about? How did the whole idea of barbarian women hefting swords and why?
Well, This is another fun story entitled Your Brain Works How? Uh, I was at a BossCon, I think it was. I was certainly at a convention at the art show. And I was with a group of people, and they were engaging in a long discussion in front of one work, which showed a woman warrior wearing one of those tiny, tiny little chainmail bikinis, and also holding her sword at a stupid angle. Because while it looked great, she was in a fight with somebody. And oh, the 3 p.m. stabbing to death will happen soon, and it will happen to her within the next 30 seconds. I wandered off. Now, I don't know why a thought hit me, but I was thinking maybe something in the art show. Remember those dreadful, exploitative women in prison stories, movies? So for some reason, I was thinking about this, and I had done some anthologies before, at least one, Alien Pregnant by Elvis, and that had been an okay experience. And I was thinking, Babes Behind Bars, maybe that could be, but how could that be science fiction, fantasy? And then suddenly, the confluence of the alliterative title and what people had been going on about in the art show hit me. And I suddenly went, Chicks in Chainmail. And you could hear the giggling up on the ceiling of my muse, who was got her again. So, and then she had another drink. So then I ran back to my friends going, Chicks in Chainmail, Chicks in Chainmail, like the philosopher who went, Eureka, naked, which thank goodness no. But and then I went over to Tony Weisskopf, Bain Books, and I said, I've got this great idea. I was also kind of fed up at the time with women in fantasy having kind of limited roles. This was way back then, you know, we have come a long way. And I didn't like that we were either rescue objects, or if we were fighters, we were grim, always grim. I know humor lurks in the midst of a lot of darkness sometimes. Undertakers have a magazine, Casket and Sunnyside, and they have great senses of humor. My father survived the Holocaust with a sense of humor intact. I'm sure that the army and the military is full of jokes at the scariest of times. Humor is a survival mechanism. And I thought that, well, why can't we have women warriors in funny situations? And in fact, in armor, but what is armor? And I'd like to see what all the different authors who might participate would make of this. And I said the only guidelines, they have to be stories about women, armor, your interpretation of armor is fine, and they have to be funny. That was it. And there was Chicks in Chainmail, and the proposition was put to Bain Books, and the publisher got very nervous about the title and wanted a disclaimer on the back of the book. I would say, fine, it is all my fault. I will take any flack. So there was the disclaimer. Now, I do want to mention that aside from Chicks in Chainmail, every single other iteration of the series, the title of the book was either in-house at Bain or the winner of a contest to name that collection anthology.
Not so that no more Chicks in Chainmail. No.
I did get a fan letter from a stuntman in New Zealand who had seen my poem to Lucy Lawless, because that was the Xena era.
Yes.
And he said, yes, hi, I'm a stuntman on Xena. Did you mean what you said about wanting an autographed picture of Xena saying to Binky, I can get you that. I have that. It is in the next room over. So, yay, internet.
Yes. Your Binky? Is that your internet
No, I
name?
just like, well, Binky is actually, as it turns out, the name of Death's horse. But I just like the way it sounds. I'll tell you, the thing about how words sound and how you play with them, even nonsense words, I got because when I was a little kid, my father would read me bedtime stories as well. They were all Pogo by Walt Kelly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there was somebody who knew how to play with language, but who also knew how to say some very serious things with humor.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely did. He definitely
Mhm.
did. You've Chicks in Chainmail and the series is not the only thing you've ever edited. Obviously, Alien Pregnant by Elvis. Did you ever consider a career in editing?
I did not, because to be a good editor, you have to, I think, be able to devote more time to it than I am willing to do. I'd rather be creating my own things. I know it is perfectly possible to edit and write, but I don't think, honestly, that I could do that. Um, so, not really. Also, I feel so bad whenever I have to say no.
Yeah. That is a hard thing to say, no, this just doesn't fit when you like the story or, it is. Um, you alluded to this when you mentioned Walt Kelly, but you've written in comedy, you've written in drama, you've written horror, you've written in all of these modes. Not just, it's not a genre thing, it's the way the story goes, whether it goes to laughter or it goes to tears. What is the best part of writing with that kind of breadth? And what's the best part of writing comedy, of drama, of horror? And what is the most challenging aspect?
Well, I think the challenging aspect is setting the goal and then getting to it and getting the words right. But also, a big challenge is not getting stalled out, burned out while working on a project. I am able to work on many things at once, many different projects at once, although there the challenge is not to dabble, 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 and never finish anything. I love deadlines. I love them so much. They are the kind governess who helps me not slough off by telling myself, oh no, you're working. You're just not accomplishing anything. And that's okay. But also, I get to turn so many different things that I encounter in my life, even if it's just the silly song to keep the kids happy or at least quiet. Uh, but I get to incorporate different things that I encounter. And the challenge is ongoing. And I never quite know where it's going to take me. And that is pretty exciting too. Sometimes characters, other writers have had this. Sometimes a character will suddenly decide, if you will, that you made me be like this and you want me to do that. But I am telling you, you made me like this, and someone like this can't do something like that. Sometimes, I wanted to give some characters a very happy ending, and there was a big battle scene, and this one character, not a major one, but he was a sweet person. He had saved this young woman from being killed by villagers, and he had fallen in love with her, and he was taking care of his little brother who needed a guardian. and there's this big battle, and he is shot full of arrows, and I was going to let him survive, and I suddenly realized he is not Saint Sebastian. He's going to die. He is shot full of arrows. He looks like a porcupine that went wrong. So I had to kill him because the story and the character and all of those arrows demanded it. And that
Those arrows are really annoying, aren't they?
According to what I remember seeing one time, Charles Dickens really did not want to kill Nancy in Oliver Twist, but the story demanded it, and he never got over it. I can understand. I don't know if it's true, but I can understand.
I think any writer who's ever identified with their characters, and how can you write with the depth of somebody like Dickens, even if he didn't know women from squat, how could you not identify and feel absolutely shaken by having to kill off one of your children, your fictional children? Yeah.
I've had to write stories and novels. I mean, I wrote 2 novels. It was going to be a 5-novel series, but stuff happened. And it was very atypical for me. The Psalms of Herod and the Sword of Mary. And it was a post-apocalyptic series of novels in which things happen and are done to the characters that horrified me and apparently horrified a lot of other people. I would have liked to have finished the series, but such was not to be. I think something happened to the publishing house. I don't think I killed them, but you know.
How do hamsters figure into all this?
Well, how don't hamsters figure? Well, we had is it pronounced schism or schism? I'm never sure.
I've heard it pronounced both ways, so go with whichever one you want.
I'm going with schism then, and darn those torpedoes. So we had a pet schism in the house, and my son got a pet hamster, and over the course of time, the hamster started walking on my keyboard. Very, very well behaved hamster. And it was a chat on Genie. Remember Genie? And I would, being bored, send the hamster gibberish, and everyone else must have been bored because they all went, this means something. And the hamster got some kind of celebrity. Anyway, from this, people decided, me too, that hamsters were cool, and various things happened, including, you're not going to believe this, somebody in the Midwest accused that hamster ours of fathering a litter on their chinchilla or ferret, which was, aside from the distance and the cross species, this was a female hamster, so woo-hoo. Anyhow, I wound up acquiring the title of Queen of Hamsters, and I wound up being a co-guest of honor with Terry Pratchett because of being Queen of Hamsters at a convention. And then I was a guest of honor at a convention in the Midwest, and they built an altar to me and this is not my fault. They invoked me in my aspects as the goddess. And on the altar, there was chocolate because in a fit of, oh, I want to play, I created the first church of chocolate. And trust me, the tithes are delicious. And there was a hamster wheel on the altar because Queen of Hamsters. So I took the wheel, and I'm walking with fellow writer Sarah Zettel, let the blame be fairly distributed. Lovely. She's a great writer. Anyhow, and a lovely person. And we were, walking through the convention afterwards because here, you can keep the wheel. And I don't remember, I think she was the one who said, you could probably turn this into some kind of a fortune telling thing, or I said it, I don't remember. And I said, I could do that. So she took the wheel and she took it with her. And she and a friend of hers, both excellent crafters, showed up at an East Coast convention to give it to me. It is a work of art, and I could go and get that too. But, and they had put little sculpey clay things on the ends of the arms, elemental hamsters, water, fire, earth, air. And they had costumed two, like about that size, toy hamsters as belly dancers. And one of them had, I'm not making this up, I will get them, I will. One of them had like 12 pennies sewed into it, so it was loaded. And I said, no problems. And I was able to start fortune telling with hamsters. And people, I never took money for me for this. I used it to raise money for Science Fiction Writers of America, for a local organization to empower young girls, for various charities. At the Discworld convention, I would do that for, well, usually it was like the orangutan rescue, or another, whatever the conventions thing was. And I had a great deal of fun, and I sometimes had some very interesting experiences. The best one being, guy comes over, I said, choose your hamster, choose wisely, puts it in the wheel. I says, now spin the wheel, think on the past, present, future, and spin that wheel. And then I said, you spun that wheel as if you were strumming a harp, so music is key to your life. And he looks at me and he hands me his business card. He built harps.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's wild.
That was funny.
Yeah. That's how we met at Dragon Con years ago, in the green room where you were doing Chibomancy here, And so, yes, but that is wild. That is
as long as it's for a good cause, I will do it. I do not want the money for it. Ever.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
No,
ever.
I know. Okay, well, we're going to get back to the more career side of the house. Since 2007, most of your novels have been young adult novels exploring the early lives of mythological heroes such as Helen of Sparta, Himiko, Maeve. What? I can't see. Which one is that? Oh, Nobody's Princess. Yes,
this is how it started.
What prompted you to move in that direction?
Well, I was invited to an anthology. I think it was called Young Warriors. And at the time I had been thinking about, I do not know why, I like mythology, many different kinds. And I'd been thinking about Helen of Troy because she was a Spartan. She was a pre-classical Spartan. And I didn't think, now the Spartans, women were greatly empowered and were raised to be strong and to, throw the javelin. The women were in charge when the men went to war, and the men went to war a lot. And I thought, and I thought that this wouldn't just spring up. There might have been some roots to it. Also, the fact that Helen's husband in the myths, he becomes king of Sparta because he marries Helen. She had two brothers. Why didn't they become the king of Sparta? Why did it pass through the women? I read a lot of Mary Renault when I was a kid too. So the idea is there of women being in charge. And I thought, well, why, if she was a pre-classic Spartan princess, and if there was this inheritance through the female, even if you had a fight to get some training. Why did she have to be rescued from Theseus when he kidnapped her? And that is a creepy story. Um,
She's like 12, isn't she?
Not only was she 12 in the one of the versions of the myth, apparently in one of the versions she gives birth before she is, and the child she gave birth to, again in many different versions, is Iphigenia,
Ooh.
the one who is sacrificed and her sister raises her. Now you can go crazy trying to get the timeline to dovetail. I made her older and I had her rescue herself from Theseus. And she doesn't do it fighting because she's in the enemy stronghold, but she uses her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the letter back from the publisher about my story, and I figured it's going to say, yes, we like your story, or no, we don't. If yes, then here are some corrections. What the letter said in essence was, we really love your Helen. Do you think you could do a book? And I stopped screeching happily long enough to contact
Yes.
my agent. Yes. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And he came back and said, we have a 2-book contract, one for Helen and one for, a short stop to be named later. Except as I started writing Nobody's Princess, her story got bigger and bigger. And I said, do you think they'd be willing to have me not do the book on Nefertiti and do a second Helen? And he said, I'll talk to them. And they said yes. And there we are. And then I did Nefertiti after all also. And the 2-book model was established. I was very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there was Himiko and Maeve. So
Yes.
lots of different places that you explored.
And then I'm sorry, I just want to say I also did this young adult novel, which isn't fantasy. Well, it's, fiction, but not fantasy, about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory.
Oh my goodness. Threads and Flames. Did I read that right?
Yeah, Threads and Flames.
Whoa. That's not what we associate with you, but that's cool.
It was something that had haunted me for the longest time. I had read up on it, maybe not decades, but certainly years. And I really wanted to be able to write about it.
Bless you.
And I got to.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Not, a little bit off the subject of Threads and Flames, quite a bit off the subject of Threads and Flames, because that was, a lot of good came out of the fire, but it was horrific. I've read enough accounts to that. No.
I just want to say one thing. I went to the centenary of it. I marched with the people, and some of the people were holding up the names of some of the people who had died.
Yeah.
And there was a 14-year-old girl holding up a sign for one of the 2 14-year-old girls who died.
Yeah.
It was devastating, but I'm glad that people are made to remember.
Yeah, no, we need to remember things like this. There's so much in our lives we need to remember, and in our history, because Santana's doomed to repeat it comes right back around all the effing time. It really does.
Absolutely.
And so memory is our strongest defense against disaster. But on a much happier note, because
yes,
we can't keep we don't want to drag this down. We want to use humor to enlighten and illumine. You've become a big fan of anime and manga. How did you discover it? And what are your current recommendations?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll be here all day if I do all of them, but I was actually on a panel at BosCon this past weekend about this, and I got to tell the story. I always loved cartoons, and my parents let me have all the cartoons and all the comic books I wanted, and look what happened. But I heard that there was this new cartoon going to be on, Astro Boy.
Ah,
Aha. And I watched the first episode, and in the first episode, a character dies, and you don't get death being permanent in cartoons because, oh heavens, children cannot handle this. Children may be forced to handle this, unfortunately. And I just sat there and we're being trusted with handling death. I was astonished. Now, I don't remember the first time I read manga, but that was anime. And now the richness of what is out there is incredible. Okay, for starters, whoa, there we go. Let me introduce you to Oku.
uh-huh.
This is the latest. It's number 18. It is an alternate history of shogunate Japan in which a plague happens that kills almost all the men. It kills a lot of men, usually men of reproductive age, including the third shogun. But it is very important to one very highly placed woman in the shogun's household, his ex-wet nurse, because she lived to see her father crucified during the wars that preceded the reign of the Tokugawa shoguns. She wants to keep peace at any price. She has his illegitimate daughter disguised as a young man to take his place. And women wind up as shoguns for generations and generations as the plague continues. So it does parallel Japanese history very, very closely. And the characters are fascinating, and the artwork is marvelous. I just love it. I do not have, this is pretty simple for the artwork, but look at it. It's gorgeous. Now, speaking of art, here is a series I've just found. It's called Blue Period.
Ah,
And it is about this high schooler who is top student, although because, as you can see, he has bleached hair and some piercings, everyone thinks he is just a delinquent. But he's the top student in class, and he is going to lead a very conventional life. He will get into probably a top college, and then he discovers art. And
like Picasso's Blue Period?
Yes, it's definitely it's invoked. And you learn all about what it takes to get into art school in Japan. It is, and here I will hope this will show, but that is just his feelings made into a drawing of what to fall into your passion. It's just wonderful. Now, imagine that the millennium disaster didn't happen. We don't need to imagine that. But imagine, if you will, afterwards, all of the greater powers can now relax. In fact, they can take a gap year if they wish. This series is called Saint Young Men. Let's see. You can see it right there.
Okay.
And it's about what happens when a gap year and sharing an apartment in Tokyo, in Tachikawa, Jesus and Buddha. It's magnificent. It really is. And how they deal with Japanese culture and also their disciples and their followers show up. I can't even describe everything that goes on. And finally, for all you, one of the wonderful things, the masterful, is it the masterful? Yes, the
Masterful.
masterful cat is depressed again today. This cat takes care of this young woman who is basically a slob. She works in an office. She had saved him as a kitten. He was been left out in the snow. She took him home. He was disgusted by how she was, living. It was just awful. And so he helps.
Oh, yes.
He got
Don't we
kind of
wish
big.
all of our cats would do that?
Yes, exactly. And he also gets into the culture. He loves this one idol group very much. He, has the fan with their names on it and stuff. But that's just a little bit.
Yeah, there is so much amazing manga and anime out there. We could be here all day, so I
We
will not
could,
get
let's not.
started. Yes, but I will ask a couple more questions, and then unfortunately we'll be wrapping up.
I
Is there
understand.
any aspect of fiction or nonfiction? Because we didn't even get started into Ask Auntie Esther.
Oh, dear
Uh,
no.
yes, we didn't even get started there. But is there any aspect of fiction or nonfiction that you haven't explored but would like to?
You're going to laugh, perhaps. I think it would be pretty awesome if my husband and I collaborated and wrote a musical.
Okay,
I've
that would ping on the comedy, that would ping on collaboration, editing, that would ping on your desire to be an actress right there.
so much. Now, mind you, when I was in college, I wrote an opera libretto vaguely based on Dark Shadows in Spanish.
Whoa.
I know, I was so bored.
Did you ever see the Spanish language Dracula?
No.
Oh yeah, they Fathom Events had a showing a few years back where they paired the Bela Lugosi version and the Spanish version that was filmed at night using all the costumes and sets.
Ooh, ooh. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's not as good. They turn it's really interesting to see the two of them together because you've got Bela Lugosi, I am Dracula, and he is, and then you've got this melodrama because they're playing it not like this is the embodiment of evil come down to England to destroy our young women. They're playing it like a good old-fashioned melodrama.
Oh
And
my goodness.
yeah,
So like a telenovela.
yes, very much like a telenovela. Or the Abel Salazar movies with oh God, El Vampiro, the Mexican ones
Oh, I
from the
never
19.
saw.
Well, you've got a treat in store.
Well, I have seen The Fearless Vampire Killers, or Pardon Me, Your Teeth Are in My Neck.
Yeah, I think
Roman
we
Polanski, of all
yes,
things.
yes. Just before because Sharon Tate was in that. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that one. Tragic aftermath, though very
yeah.
funny movie.
Oh,
But yeah, no, Herman Robles was Mexico's answer to kind of a Christopher Lee character, only he was
oh,
very short. And so he made a series of vampire movies in the 1950s and early 60s, many of them produced by a comedian named Abel Salazar.
hmm.
And there was it it was an entire production company whose name escapes me right now that did horror movies, and they are wonderful and bad, but so bad they're wonderful.
I
And
got it.
I got that feeling watching the Spanish language version of Dracula that was filmed at the same time. They do not use the camera placements. It's really a very, very different thing. And it's wonderful in its own way, but it is completely different from the
Well,
Bela Lugosi version.
this has made me remember that when we got our tape player, the first thing, this wasn't my fault, my husband did it. The first tape we bought was Rock and Roll Wrestling Women versus the Aztec Mummy.
Oh, yes, yes,
You
yes.
know about this?
Oh, yeah, that was
okay,
one of
okay.
the something I cannot remember the name of the production company, but they did that one. For some reason, our Philadelphia's horror host did a bunch of things that involved the Aztec mummy.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
Yes,
goodness. And there
and
was a
so
sequel, and he bought that too.
yeah. Well, hey, of course. How
Yeah,
could you resist? And so you're going
that's
to do a
true.
musical about Aztec mummies and wrestling women, right?
Yes, go wrestling women, go.
But no, I think a musical would be a great idea, and
Yeah.
especially if it was something as jubilant as the lizard washing song.
Oh, dear heavens, yes. I like composing little silly songs, though. I actually, in another story that I had published in fantasy and science fiction, I had the part of a song that I had done all of elsewhere. If Jesus drove a semi,
Okay.
yes, it is perhaps the only country western yuppie Yaley vampire story in existence. We can but pray that is true.
Now that would be a great musical too. I'd go see it. Uh,
Oh dear.
I'm prodding your muse. You realize I'm
My
doing
muse
this.
cannot be trusted. Really.
And
She's
that's the
just so
beauty of it. That
strong.
is the beauty of it.
Okay,
Okay. We're coming up against the end of the hour, which is a shame
please.
because I've enjoyed this.
Oh,
Um,
same.
yeah, what's next for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm working on some stories, and I also have an idea which I will not disclose because, well, I find if I talk about specifics, it's not a case I fear someone will take it. I fear I will lose the impetus to make it happen, to bring it into the real world.
Mhm.
But it's a really interesting idea having to do with mythology again and young adult. And I have begun it, and I really want to get this thing done and out there. So that's what I am doing with that. And I'm also enjoying traveling again. And whenever I travel, I usually wind up finding out something that I want to turn into a story, but I try to not have that always. You have to relax too.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to be compulsive about it because heaven knows the little inner demons beat you up enough for not writing 24/7. Uh,
Oh boy.
they do, yeah. I've got to handle the fact that a disaster is happening around me, and it's like you aren't writing today.
Well, you know what? Turning big events that are affecting you into stories is therapeutic, even if they aren't disastrous. I my kids were born by cesarean section. I wrote a story about C-sections called CSEA section.
Mhm.
And that was fun.
Mhm.
That really was. I mean, there was nothing traumatic about it, the event, but there it is. It is therapy. I wrote about 9/11.
Mhm.
I wrote about how, well, I heard about some horrible people in England, supremacists who were bothering Pakistani children, school children, and I couldn't do anything about it. So I wrote a story. Uh, and it was a Just Desserts story. So I don't know. I felt better.
Yeah, well, it does. It usually it helps to have a little time to process them, though,
Very
and
much.
the thing that gets me is how when you're in the middle of it, the muse is still going, why aren't you writing? It's not what comes out of it. It's like, excuse me, I'm in a situation here.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, that was what I was saying, and to give yourself a break on that, but very cool. Okay, we're in the bonus round time. Is there anything
Okay.
you'd like to add before we go?
Well, I was going to say, if it's the bonus round, where is my car? Aren't I supposed to win one?
I don't think so. I'm not Oprah, unfortunately. I would gladly give you a car uh, if
It's
I had
okay. I'd
one.
only break it. Well, let me see. I don't know. What do people usually do? An inspirational thing? Because I will tell you this much. Anybody who is feeling that they really want to write must go out there and, well, very stupid to say, but yes, write, and to sort out why you want to do this. Uh, and if it's like, I want to be George R. Martin, no, you want to be your thing. It may not take off, but how is it going to make you feel to accomplish that? Uh, and also, I guess I would like to say this is going to be out there on the social media in some way.
Yes.
Uh, Please, everybody, learn how to take social media, because I have seen too many people bullied and too many people acting like bullies. And that's just, it's toxic to everybody, including the bully. Uh, so turn it off. Turn it off, step away. Why are you doing this? Do better. Because we're right now learning a very hands-on lesson that things can be bad enough, um, not to make them worse than they are. Try to make them better. And yeah, it sounds like I'm being a total duck-billed platitude, but sometimes there's only one way to say what I'd like to see happen, which is that less toxicity, uh, people making things a little bit better, and also more cats. We definitely need more cats.
More cats, more cats. And social media can be positive. I mean, you are there yourself. So could you let our viewers know where they can find you on the web?
Well, I'm Esther Friesner, I think is just the thing you find me on Facebook. I am kind of selective about friend requests because I'd like to know who you are before I let you into what is basically the parlor of my social media house. Um, if I cannot tell who you are by your page, then don't let strangers in. This may be backward of me, but it's been working for me so far. And I am also on Twitter. Now, I think there I'm E. Friesner just, but I'll bet you could find me because mad internet skills. But it's either E. Friesner or Esther Friesner in both cases.
Okay, great. And you have a developing website, right?
I do. I do. It's on Wix, and I do not have the website in front of me, which should give you some idea. I think you'd do much better finding me elsewhere.
Okay, that's fair enough. And this has been so much fun, Esther. Thank you
Same
so
here.
much. Thank you so much for joining us here at ConTinual.
Well,
And
my pleasure.
great. And thank you out there for joining us at ConTinual, the convention we hope you'll find and enjoy for a long time. Thanks.